It was meant to be the crown jewel of Los Angeles. The Cecil Hotel opened in 1924 with marble halls, 700 rooms, and the promise of luxury. But behind those stained glass windows, darkness staked its claim early. Within a few years, headlines branded it the city's death hotel after a wave of suicide shattered its glamorous start. By the 1980s, serial killers would call the Cecil home, and tragedy would echo through its halls for nearly a century. What transforms one hotel from a beacon of prosperity to the most haunted hotel in America? The answers begin at the very foundation, where ambition collided with fate, and nothing was ever the same. In December 1924, the Cecil Hotel opened its doors on Main Street, a towering promise of modern luxury in the heart of Los Angeles. Developer William Banks Hanna, joined by Charles L. Dix and Robert H. Shops, poured more than $1 million into the project, a staggering sum for the time. Hanna's vision was bold, a hotel that would rival any west of Chicago, catering to traveling executives, socialites, and the city's rising elite. Stepping into the lobby, guests found themselves surrounded by Italian marble, stately palm trees, and stained glass windows that scattered sunlight across the floor. The Beaux-Arts architecture, designed by Loy Lester Smith, boasted ornate plasterwork and grand staircases. A rooftop garden crowned the building, offering sweeping views of the city's growing skyline. With over 700 rooms, Otis elevators, and furnishings from Barker Brothers, every detail was chosen to impress. Promotional postcards from the opening year touted the Cecil as the finest hostelry in Los Angeles, and local newspapers described its opening as a civic event. For a brief moment, the hotel stood as a monument to prosperity and optimism, reflecting the city's rapid growth and boundless ambition. But beneath the marble and glass, the city's fortunes and the hotel's would soon face a test that no one could predict. By 1927, the Cecil's fortunes had already taken a dark turn. That year, the hotel recorded its first suicide. Percy Ormond Cook, a middle-aged guest, ended his life in one of the upper rooms. The Los Angeles Herald ran the story with a somber headline, hinting at trouble brewing beneath the hotel's polished surface. City officials worried about the effect on downtown's image, while the press seized on every detail. As the Great Depression tightened its grip, the streets outside filled with the desperate and the displaced. The hotel's once grand lobby now welcomed a new kind of guest, men and women battered by economic collapse, seeking shelter for a night or a month. Room rates dropped, and the Cecil quietly shifted from a destination for travelers to a last resort for those with nowhere else to go. By the 1930s, a pattern began to emerge. Reports of deaths, many from falls or jumps from the upper floors, started to fill the columns of local newspapers. The building's name began to appear alongside words like tragedy and despair. By the 1940s, journalists and residents alike whispered a new nickname, the Suicide. Some called it Death Hotel. Each incident added another layer to the building's reputation, and the neighborhood around the Cecil became known as Skid Row, a place where hope seemed to vanish. Even as the rest of Los Angeles pressed forward, the Cecil stood as a grim reminder of the city's forgotten and its lost. By the 1960s, the streets outside the Cecil pulsed with danger. Skid Row's shadows crept right up to the lobby doors, and police radios crackled with calls from the hotel almost every week. Assaults, robberies, and drug arrests became routine. Patrol cars circled the block, and guests learned to double-lock their doors. Inside, the atmosphere grew tense. The front desk clerk kept a baseball bat behind the counter. Housekeepers swapped stories about blood-stained sheets and broken windows. Each month, the LAPD logged a dozen or more incidents inside the building, far more than most hotels in the city. In 1985, the Cecil's reputation reached new depths when Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, checked in. He paid cash for a room on the 14th floor and slipped in and out at odd hours, sometimes barefoot, sometimes spattered with blood. Staff later recalled how he tossed his clothes into the dumpster after a killing, then strolled through the lobby in his underwear. Most guests kept to themselves, but some noticed the strange man with wild eyes and a chilling smile. LAPD records from that summer show a spike in emergency calls from the hotel, though no one suspected a serial killer was living among them. Criminologists studying the case point to the Cecil as the perfect hiding place, a building large enough to swallow secrets, with a constant churn of faces and stories no one bothered to question. For years, the hotel's corridors echoed with whispered warnings. The line between guest and predator blurred, and the sense of dread inside the Cecil became impossible to ignore. In 1991, an Austrian journalist named Jack Unterweger checked into the Cecil. On the surface, he was in Los Angeles to write about crime for European newspapers. But police would later discover that Unterweger was living a double life. While he filed stories about Skid Row's dangers, he was quietly targeting women in the very neighborhoods he covered. His diaries, seized by investigators, described late-night walks through the Cecil's corridors and an obsession with the building's atmosphere. He rode along with LAPD officers, gaining access to crime scenes and police chatter, all while using his press credentials as a shield. 3 murders were eventually tied to his stay. Inside the hotel, the dangers weren't limited to the people who passed through. By the mid-1990s, city inspectors logged a growing list of hazards: broken elevators, exposed wiring, leaking pipes, and rooms sealed off after repeated complaints. Inspection memos from the era detail violations ranging from fire code breaches to pest infestations. Residents filed lawsuits describing collapsed ceilings, malfunctioning alarms, and a constant police presence. Some rooms were so contaminated by mold and water damage that they remained off limits for years. Property owners fought back in court, often settling claims without admitting fault. City records show that emergency repair orders and abatement notices arrived almost as frequently as the police. The building's physical decay was no longer hidden behind its walls. For many tenants, the Cecil became a place where danger came not just from the streets outside, but from the building itself. On January 28, 2010, Elisa Lam checked into the Cecil Hotel. She was a 21-year-old student from Canada traveling alone through California. For several days, Elisa explored the city, posted online updates, and was seen by hotel staff using her laptop in the lobby. Then she vanished. The last known image of Elisa came from a hotel elevator security camera, recorded on February 1st. The footage shows her stepping inside, pressing multiple buttons, and peering nervously into the hallway. Her movements are erratic. She hides in the corner, gestures at something unseen, and finally slips out of view. For weeks, no one could explain what happened next. On February 19th, maintenance workers discovered Elisa's body in a rooftop water tank. The coroner ruled her death accidental, but questions about how she reached the locked rooftop and what happened in those final moments remain unanswered. In 2014, the owners of the Cecil Hotel introduced a new name: Stay on Main. Fresh logos appeared on the marquee, and marketing memos promised a safe, affordable place for young travelers and students. But the change stirred debate in City Hall and among preservationists. Some argued the building's history was too dark to ignore, while others saw value in its original architecture and the stories locked inside its walls. In 2017, the Los Angeles City Council granted the hotel historic cultural monument status, protecting its Beaux-Arts facade and marble lobby. Renovation plans aimed to turn the upper floors into affordable housing, but progress stalled. For all the talk of renewal, the Cecil's reputation refused to fade, leaving city planners and community groups divided over its future and the meaning of its past. In nearly a century, the Cecil Hotel has seen over 700 rooms, 2 major rebrandings, and countless police reports. Historical records show the first reported suicide in 1927, marking the start of its dark reputation, a reputation reinforced by documented stays from serial killers Richard Ramirez in 1985 and Jack Unterweger in 1991. Inspection reports from the 1990s revealed decades of neglect and hazardous conditions. The 2013 death of Elisa Lam, ruled accidental by the coroner, drew global attention, yet questions about her final movements remain unresolved due to restricted access records and incomplete surveillance footage. Despite efforts to rebrand as Stay on Main and a historic cultural monument designation in 2017, the building's past continues to overshadow its future. Today, the Cecil stands as a testament to how a place's history is shaped by both documented events and enduring questions. Its legacy remains, a building where tragedy and mystery are separated only by the limits of what the evidence reveals.